Jordan, Joelle, hey, congratulations for being on this Peacock's baking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So let's start off with that easy question. How did you end up going onto this show for yourselves?
Yeah, so a bit of a wild ride. I got an Instagram sponsored post actually when I was just, scrolling through my timeline. And like Instagram sponsored posts, they keep targeting you. So the first time I just ignored it. And then I think by like the third or fourth time I sent it to Joelle. And all I responded was, yeah, I got it too. That was it. Like, that was really it. But it really was a pretty seamless process in terms of that audition step was to just send in a video. And we happened to be doing a mini photo shoot. This was pre-vaccine and all of that. So we weren't going anywhere. We were doing a little photo shoot outside just with ourselves for a friend of ours. She has a clothing line. And so when we came back in, I was like, well, we already did our hair and our makeup. Let's just throw this video together and send it in. And the rest is history.
Yeah. We went through, talked with different people and had interviews and such. And it was honestly a pretty seamless process. They were very communicative through the whole thing, which was great. And then ultimately found ourselves on an airplane to Los Angeles, which was crazy.
So there was no like baking audition or anything like that. It was just
there was lots of baking. There were lots of baking auditions. Yes, we were baking pretty much, outside we work full time. We work in marketing. So outside of the hours that we were working, that we were baking and sending in videos and clips and all of that stuff just to kind of talk through, different things, different flavors that we like, different techniques that we were familiar with or, had been familiar with, different traditions that our family, of course, it being a holiday show.
It's been Christmas here. In short, it's been Christmas in this apartment since like
August. Yeah. Probably like July, I guess.
Yeah.
Did they tell you off the spot that it was going to be sort of like a holiday theme baking competition?
Yeah, I think I knew from the beginning. I was trying to think, maybe even the sponsored post said it. I really can't remember.
I'm pretty sure we knew. I'm pretty sure we knew from like early on, if not the very beginning, pretty early on.
Yeah, because at least family centric.
Yes, yeah, we always knew it was going to be family centric because I do remember in the first Zoom interview that we had, we talked a lot about different family traditions and who was important to us. So we at least knew it was going to be family centric. And then I think like 2 auditions in was when we found out it's going to be holiday specific.
Holiday.
Well, then tell us about your baking backgrounds. When did this all start for the both of you?
Yeah. So it's so funny because I feel like on a show like this, everyone's like, oh, you must have baked as children. You must have, maybe your grandparents bake. How is it? And that's not totally the case for us. We always made sweet potato pies growing up for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. That was always a staple since we were little, probably since we were like 4 or 5, we've always made those. But other than that, we've really, everything came out of a box. Like if it was a box cake mix, if it was cookie mix, like that's what we brought to school for birthdays and any sort of celebration. We really started baking in college, just as an inexpensive way to give gifts to friends for birthdays and things like that, and just started to realize how much joy it brought people. There were 2 very, very small dorm room competitions that the residence assistants do fun things for the students. And we entered those. I think it was like us and like 3 other people.
Like no one else.
And me being the competitive person put in 2 entries to ensure that I would win. So that was kind of how we started there. And then after college is where we really got into hand decorated cookies. And that's sort of our specialty. And just kind of grew from there, started an Instagram account. People were asking, how do I make this? How do I do that? And I was like, all right, let's just throw it all on this one Instagram account and people will kind of flock to it. And our friend Emily came up with the name Double Dough. And that was probably 7 years ago now. And the rest is history.
As twins, do you always do things together?
We do. Everything we do together. We work full time. We went to college together. So then, of course, we majored in the same thing. So naturally, our jobs would have been similar no matter what. But we've been at the same company for 7 years. We write for a blog and we live in Hoboken, New Jersey. We write for a blog together. We our biggest thing that we do is community service. So we have our own nonprofit together with 2 of our friends. We do a lot of community service for the blog that we write for. And then we're also on the board of another nonprofit. So we do all of that together. But even outside of that, I mean, baking, of course, you could see on television that we work as a team. We don't argue or anything like that, but everything we do is together.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you manage to work as a team so well for this, for so long?
I think it's just been something that we've been doing literally, I guess, since before we were born, really, but literally since day one. And we go about doing things in different ways. You know, we have different techniques and different styles, but I think ultimately because we always have the same or a very similar goal, it ends up, the end product is always what we're working towards. So that ends up just kind of coming together. And of course we have different strengths and weaknesses, and we kind of complement each other. I know what she's good at, she knows what I'm good at, and we just work really well that way.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your heritage, because that actually matters quite a bit onto this show.
Absolutely.
Latin, heritage of yours.
Yeah, so we are 50% Black. My mom's family is Black American, just like a lot of other Blacks in the United States. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly where we're from, but we do know we're Black. And then my dad is 100% Puerto Rican.
Yes.
So half Black, half Puerto Rican, exactly 50-50 split here. And that matters to us a lot, where it's always been instilled in us of, knowing where you're from. And I can remember from very young ages, my parents teaching us about the history of both of our cultures. And of course, my grandparents speaking Spanish and being immersed in that culture. And then also, learning about Black history here in the United States, learning about different types of what we would call Black people here in the US, whether it's Caribbean, African, what have you, pulling that together. And even though we did go to schools with predominantly people who don't look like us, it was always welcomed, and it was always a part of the conversation, and definitely always something that my parents pushed forward, and then also put us into a lot of different activities that helped us really learn more about our culture, learn who we are, learn where we come from. And that is something that as adults is extremely important to us, and we continue on with in our daily lives, and it really shines through, of course, in our traditions, and like every culture, food, of course.
Yes.
Well, then let's get on to the business of the show itself. What was it like when you first stepped onto that set?
Oh my gosh, it was truly a dream.
I still in my mind, it's like not real, right? Like, I know it happened. I know I was there. I got on an airplane. I wasn't in New Jersey anymore. I was in this cabin,
not in Kansas
anymore. Yeah, right. And it just still doesn't. We watch so much baking television.
I was gonna say we watch an absurd amount of baking television. Like any baking show that has been on, we've seen it. We've watched it intensely. So to be actually on and see that, and of course, sitting at home eating, throwing popcorn in your mouth, you're like, you shouldn't do it this way. Come on, are you crazy for doing that on this show? Like, how could you get to this point and not? And then I found myself like, I'm one of these people on a baking show that's messing up. So you end up being the people that you yell at on television. But it was so surreal. Yeah. Especially when we first walked into the cabin. Of course we were filming in LA. So LA is not ideal for winter weather, but they definitely transformed it. You truly felt like you were in a cabin with other people, and the other bakers are just, oh my God. I know I keep using the word a dream, but it literally felt like a dream. Right. The other bakers are incredible, and we talk to them every day, all day, every day. And we are truly the best of friends. I've never become so close with perfect strangers in my life, especially people that we were competing against. So it was just an absolute pleasure to be there. The people at NBC were incredible. The people at Peacock are amazing. So just being able to work with them and see. Also, everyone is so good at what they do. Right. I mean, from producing to the camera people to the production, the dishwashers. Right. Exactly. We're like, thank you so much. I've never gone through so many KitchenAid bowls in my life. And to of course the bakers, and of course the grannies as well. Everyone, it's really is inspiring to be in a room of people who are willingly perfecting their craft. There are people who have talent, and that's great, and they have that, but to go a step further and really want to better yourself, and to just to be around literally hundreds of people like that is just one of the most, of course there's the television theatrics and everything was beautifully set up and all the built-in sprinkles and all of that. But I think the biggest thing that I took away was just being around people who truly want to better themselves.
Now you mentioned that you two were baking enthusiasts watching shows before. I know I know we're trying to plug baking, but I'm just curious, what other shows do you enjoy watching? Because obviously it sounds like you might have like the Food Network on 24.
Oh, so I know that the Food Network has a baking show on every Monday night.
Yes.
So every Monday night and maybe not actually on Monday night, but once a week we're watching something, whether it's like a spring challenge, a Christmas challenge, a Halloween challenge.
The kids are coming back and love the kids.
Yeah, the kids, like we watch that. Of course, the British baking challenge, you know, people watch that. They had the American one at some point. Cupcake Wars. I think I remember years ago when Candace Nelson got really big from sprinkles because of Oprah. And that's really where I think I was like, wow, like
this
you
is a
can, like
possibility,
you can do this, right?
Yes.
And whether it was like from the business side, like we mentioned, when we were younger, we didn't really bake, but she's someone who we've always followed and just kind of knew that that was a dream, and I've watched her on television and she judged Cupcake Wars and all that kind of stuff. And then we've watched, I mean, the Chocolate Wars. These are the ones on Food Network. They would carry those like 10 story
and they would make these cakes for 10 hours, and then they would part of the challenge was to move it from this table to that table, and they were like 6 inches apart, but you were like, oh my god, what's gonna happen with this kid? But other shows that we watch a lot of like competition sort of reality shows. I always tell people, if like honestly, probably if it got really bad ratings, I loved it.
Right.
I have like probably the worst taste in television. Or if it's a like cultural phenomenon like Game of Thrones or something, I know nothing about it. I've never seen it. So like whatever is popular, I'm not watching. Whatever people hate, like Rotten Tomatoes gave a 0 to, I'm like, this was the best show ever. So all of those sort of corny reality competition shows, I'm here for all of it.
Yes.
So tell us about that preparation process going on to this show. I mean, how do you get yourself into that right mindset?
You just start baking everything.
Yeah.
You just, because you don't know, right? Like you have no idea what's coming your way. We know what we're good at. Like Joelle said, we make hand decorated cookies. So I was like, bring on the challenges. But it's a different mindset of knowing that you're going to be timed. When we do cookies here, if we're doing them for a friend or something, I could go days, right? Like we could have them out on the counter. We could do one round of icing and then the second layer and the third layer. And it could take me a week to make 80 cookies if I really wanted to take that time. Whereas in a show, they're only going to give you like a couple hours, right? So getting into the right mindset, I mean, they did a great job leading up to it of kind of throwing some things at us during the audition process last minute. We had to film things, we had to be timed while we were doing it. So we started to get into that mindset. Yeah. I think so part of what we do is we work in sales. So I think I'm always in a competitive mindset. So that wasn't too much of a struggle to get into the competition mindset, but knowing that you're throwing yourself into something that's going to be so uncomfortable and something that was completely out of my just realm of anything I thought I was going to do was tough to throw your mind into, but just practice. Yeah. But then you also don't know if you're practicing the right thing. So
right. I also halfway through we were, doing all these crazy challenges and submitting things at 4 o'clock in the morning because we had to get it done before work started, or quickly making things during lunch. One video that I submitted, I'm like fully dressed for work. And I was like, I never look like that when I'm baking, but it was because we were doing things during lunch. And halfway through I said to Jordan, why don't we enter like a county fair or something first? Like, why are we doing this on NBC for the first time? But I was like, well, I guess, go big or go home. And we've all been home for the last year, so we might as well go big. Yeah. So that was just kind of like going through my mind the whole time. Like outside of those small dorm room competitions that I mentioned earlier, I've never baked, I've never cooked competitively. Yeah. So to kind of think, and of course during the audition process, you're also wondering, am I doing this right? Am I, what are they looking for? You're just trying to be yourself, really. Yeah. And you're just trying to make sure that what you're doing matches up, and you don't know who else is in the interview or the audition process. So you have no idea, who you're up against, what you're up against. And we're not professional bakers. This is not, this is something that's very, very much a side hobby. So we just kind of never really knew, is this something that, or are there like master bakers that are going to be on this show? Whatever, you don't know what's happening. So that's just kind of a mind game a little bit too, but again, just trying to stay authentically yourself and do your best. And that's really all you can do.
Well, there's auditions, there's preparation. So now in the competition, what did you two actually have to go through? I mean, what were you thinking when, that clock starts?
Yeah, when the clock starts, it's exciting, right? Of course, the first episode, we just so much was thrown. We see Maya and Andy for the first time. Right. Trying to figure out who the judges are going to be. You're kind of still getting to know the bakers. So it was a rush, I think, at first. Once we kind of decided that we were going to do the shrimp and grits cream puffs, and Joelle always makes the cream puffs, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do the shrimp and grits. I was like, oh, I'm just cooking. I was like, I can do this, right? Yeah. You can throw whatever you want into cooking. It doesn't matter the measurements and all that. So I think having that, at least for myself, that mindset eased me into it a little bit. Once we got into making the cakes, we know we're not cake people. We're not, right? We don't really make cakes.
Oh, the first episode, I will say.
The first episode,
we did a pretty good job.
We did a pretty bomb cake the first episode, for people who have watched or haven't, but we're not big cake people. So once it came to that one, I'm a very positive person by nature. And so I think my positivity just came through with that challenge. It was truly a challenge, right? There were so many things that were thrown every time we took something out of the oven or took it out of the fridge or started making something else. It just kept not working. Yeah. So that was just a tough day for us. But the positivity is something that I'm happy that I've had previously before this competition, because it definitely helped my mindset throughout and to be just in a better place while challenges were being thrown our way.
Absolutely. I mean, like Jordan said, it is truly a rush. You're so excited to even be there. You've gone through this whole audition process, and this is sort of a finish line, really, when the show kind of starts, because you've gone through this whole audition process that you're like, oh, I made it, right? It's like you've crossed a half marathon finish line, and then somebody's like, no, you still have to run another 13 miles. That's actually a full marathon. It's like we've run half marathons before, and the lanes kind of split when you're doing half or a full, and it's like you got in the wrong line. Like, you're like, oh, I meant to run a half marathon, and now I'm running a full. And so you're kind of in it, and you're like, oh yeah, this is still going, but this is actually the start line for everybody else that's watching at home. Nobody else knows that we've been doing this for 3-4 months. So you're just kind of trying to reset yourself and put yourself back into that go kind of mindset.
So let's turn to the hosts, Maya and Andy. How are they, and how did you interact with them? I mean, do they seem to throw you off sometimes when you're trying to bake in the middle of the process?
They were incredible. First of all, we didn't know who the hosts were going to be. In all honesty, because baking it is a spinoff of making it, in my mind, I just tucked it away that Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman were going to be the hosts, and I honestly never thought about it again. Until they said, oh, the hosts are going to come out, and someone down the line said it's not going to be Amy and Nick, and I was just like, okay. And I never thought about who was going to be.
I was trying to remember how to make a cake, how to make.
That's what I was like. I
don't even allow myself.
I don't really care who the hosts are going to be. It's going to be what it's going to be. When Maya and Andy came out, I know that I'm a Maya Rudolph fan, right? Like I love Maya Rudolph. Nothing against Andy Samberg, but I am a very big Maya Rudolph fan. I know that about myself. I didn't realize how big of a Maya Rudolph fan I was until she was standing in front of me, and I just lost it.
At one point, you can even see in the trailer, Maya's talking, and she's like looking over to the side. I like to believe that she was staring at us because we were actually falling, holding each other up because I just couldn't believe what was happening in front of me.
Right.
And that was when I really felt like, okay, wow, this is really real. We're in Los Angeles. We're filming a baking show with Maya Rudolph and Andy Samberg. This is crazy. But they were incredible.
They were nice to interact with. They didn't really, I mean, at least for me, didn't throw us off, at all. It was nice to have that interaction with them. Very genuine. Even in the one of the episodes, and when Andy Samberg asked us about our nonprofit, I didn't think I was going to end up making it, because just the way that he was asking it, I was like, oh, he's just asking just for his own reference, whatever. Because you knew that the questions they were asking, they genuinely wanted answers for. It wasn't like they were holding cue cards. They weren't there was no teleprompter. There was no one in their ears telling them what to ask us. Maybe there was. I didn't know, but they were genuinely interacting with us. And it was just such a cool experience. I mean, I was talking to them as if how I'm talking to my sister right now, right?
Right.
And someone who you have known for
and
a
just
while.
being able to share, like Jordan said, they were so genuinely interested in what all of us had to say, all of the bakers, and sharing things that are so personal, like family traditions and all those things, and them making you feel so comfortable.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to feel so comfortable in that environment. I was expecting to kind of hold my breath and just wait till it's over and then exhale. But I really felt like at one point, and I'm glad that I kind of took it in, because at one point I was going to the back to wash my hands, and I looked around and I said, wow, I can't believe how actually comfortable I feel here. Like I said, the other bakers, Maya and Andy, everyone else involved in the show was amazing, and they all made us feel at home. And Maya and Andy really were amazing. They were great.
Now, did the judges with the grannies, did that throw you off? I mean, or is it a relief that they're not professional judges?
Well, after Maya and Andy, I was like, ooh, who else are they gonna bring out? Like, is it gonna be somebody famous? But it really was a relief. I mean, to be able to share those stories, it kind of get emotional, right? You have every type of emotion that's going on there. Of course, you're happy to be there. Sometimes, of course, sharing stories about your family, you may get sad, of course, especially after the last year and a half with all being locked away. You can be angry or frustrated at yourself. You're afraid, right, that something bad is going to happen to your bake. So there's so many emotions that you're going through, that having the charmingness and just the warmthness of a grandma and a baking grandma, I think was so nice to have on set. And they were so reassuring and just so comforting, honestly.
And any negative comment was quickly followed by a positive. Like, Grandma Ann, I think at one point of our cake said, it's a little coarse, but I'm still eating it. It's fine. I'm like, it's okay. I'm so sorry to say something. No, it's, I know that something went wrong during that, so it's totally fine that you're saying that that's a bad piece of cake, because I would probably agree if I ate that piece of cake. So, it was really, really nice. And they gave, out off camera, so many tips and so much encouragement. Keep going. I mean, I was just messaging with Gigi Sherry over Thanksgiving and the last week, and we sent her cookies, and she sent us a Christmas gift, which was completely unexpected and just so nice. But they're amazing, absolutely incredible.
So how would you rate your overall experience on this show, and were there any regrets?
Oh my God. I mean, if I only get 10 points, I'm giving 100, right? Like, the experience was absolutely unbelievable. No regrets at all. I think anybody who goes out and takes a step towards their dream, whether they know it's their dream or they're just trying something for new, you can't have any regrets. And I think there were moments, of course, after we get voted off, that I was like, oh, I'm sad or I'm embarrassed. And I was like, I feel so silly, right? Like, I'm embarrassed for competing on NBC, right? And for giving myself that shot. So you learn a lot about yourself, right? That's for sure. And you learn a lot about the person that you're baking with. We happen to always be together, right? But I think for some of the other pairs, they learn a lot about how they interact. They learn a lot about how I meet other people and how I interact with them in a competition setting. So no regrets whatsoever. No. I would do it. I would do it a million times again. It kind of like keeps playing in my mind. There's an Alicia Keys song, and one of the lyrics in there is, "I'd risk the fall to know what it feels to fly." And that's this experience, right? Like, I'm going to risk putting a really, I was going to say something else, but putting a really bad cake on television. Just to know what it's like to be in this experience, to meet these amazing people and to have new friends and to just have this experience. Sure, I'll risk putting out a kind of crappy cake. That's fine. But I got to do this, and there are zero regrets whatsoever.
It sounds like you learned a lot more about yourselves as
I mean, perseverance, resilience. Going after your dream, knowing, okay, is this actually what I want to do? Because there's so many times, especially during the audition process, where you could have just thrown in the bag, right? It's a pandemic. So throughout the entire thing, where you're getting news about people, you're finding out different things, of course, just the state of the world, right? Like, okay, we were locked down and then we weren't, then we got vaccinated, we're happy, but then we're back inside. Like, there was just so many things that happened throughout this process that this was the consistent, and it was kind of like, whoa, am I going to keep doing this? Am I not? A lot changed at work for us. So there was just so many things that were thrown during this process that you realize, wow, I stuck with it. And even if we hadn't meted, I think I still would have learned a lot about myself throughout that time. And then when you get there to realize how you're going to be and what you want to portray. Fame is not, I mean, we're not famous by any stretch of the imagination, but we're on television. So you learn, you know, you're in front of producers, they're asking you to tell stuff about yourself, they're prompting you with questions, and how true to yourself are you going to be?
Stay, right.
Are you going to stay? And a friend of ours watched, you know, all of our friends have watched the show, and he was like, I just, when I watched it and I'm looking at you guys, I'm like, wow, that's really Jordan and Joelle.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was like, thank you. I was like, that is all I wanted out of the show, was to just be myself on camera, and people recognize me on camera, like for who I am, people closest to me, because there's so many ways that you could divert that and change that. So learning that about yourself, and other bakers would probably say the same, maybe even grandmas as well. And Maya and Andy, being in the industry for so long, probably know a lot about themselves as well. So it's you learn a lot.
Absolutely.
Well, let me wrap it up with one more thing, because you already answered it already, but I want to know is that you already said that you would do this again, but are you making efforts to trying to do this again, or are you just going to wait for that?
I haven't got another sponsored Instagram post.
Right. Yeah. I think because this one just came so genuinely and just very much like, I mean, the same way I get a post for a bag, a handbag, is the same way I got a post for this. So we haven't. It's been a ride with this one. It's been so fun, but you know, if another Instagram post comes along or another producer comes along and says, hey, we have this opportunity,
I definitely would.
I'd give it a shot.
Especially hosting, as when we were there and I was seeing Maya and Andy, I said to Joelle, I was like, how do I do that?
Right.
How do I get out of this competition aspect and do that? But no, I would definitely compete again. I mean, especially if it means meeting new people and all that. If I could bring these people along with me, that would be even better.
Yeah.
But I would definitely do it again.
Yeah, like if it can be guaranteed at least one other pair. I would literally pick out of a hat. I don't care who it is, but at least one other pair, then 100%. But I would do it again in a heartbeat, especially in a sort of family-centric environment.
That is great. I certainly hope you both will have another opportunity. And I'm just curious, off camera, when they finish taping, do you ever have a chance to taste other people's foods?
So when we were there,
I think normally we probably would have.
I was gonna say normally we probably would have, but there were so many COVID restrictions, NBC did an excellent job of keeping us. As when I tell you we were safe, safe.
I was more sure that I didn't have COVID than I was with my name.
Yeah,
like, I knew I did not have COVID.
Yes. So there just so many precautions were taken that we didn't. I think maybe a little bit later on in the process, I think there was one challenge where they were gifting people things, and so they had to taste because that was part of the challenge, but. Unfortunately, no, and we've
again, because we stay in close contact with the bakers, we've ordered from some of them, we've shipped them cookies.
Actually, I have a box of cookies over there that is going to be mailed to DXT, and I'll be mailed in like 20 minutes. Once we're done here, I'm going to FedEx to mail that. So we've exchanged things. We're doing a Secret Santa and getting on Zoom and stuff together. So we've had some things since, but not while we were on the show, just because of COVID. Mm-hmm.
Well, great. I'm glad that you had such a great experience and long-lasting friendships after all this. So, hey, this is a pleasant conversation, Jordan, Joelle. I hopefully you get to do this again, and I would love to talk to you again.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much.
This was great.
Thank you. Next time, hopefully.